There are Toyota hybrids in Australia right now with more than 350,000 kilometres on their original battery. There are Utes topping this country's own reliability survey ahead of Toyota itself. Some cars are built to shrug off a decade of our roads and barely notice. But near perfect is a slippery promise, and almost every list selling it to you leaves out the catch. So here are 10 cars you can still buy new in Australia in 2026 with records as close to perfect as this gets, and the honest catch bolted to every one. Here is the honest part first, because it changes how you read the whole list. No car is literally perfect. Reliability is not a promise, it is odds. It is the least exciting thing you can say about a car, which is probably why nobody mentions it right up until the morning theirs will not start. But it is the only thing you actually notice every single day, when the car just fires up and gets you to work without a tow truck and without drama. What the good data actually measures is how rarely a car leaves its owner stranded, how few faults owners report in the first few years, and how long the thing keeps going before it starts costing you real money. The pics below lean on Australian numbers wherever I can get them, because our climate, our distances, our unsealed roads, and the way we actually service cars out here look nothing like the American market a lot of these surveys come from. That means Canstar Blue's owner ratings, where thousands of local drivers score the car they actually own and live with. D. Power Dependability Study, which surveyed more than 35,000 owners. And it means long, boring, proven track records on our roads, not a lab car on a test bench somewhere. Every car here has earned its spot. Every one of them also has a catch, and I am going to give you both halves, because a list that only tells you the good part is trying to sell you something. One more thing worth knowing, because it actually makes the whole list stronger rather than weaker. These surveys do not perfectly agree with one another, and that is a good thing. Canstar Blue asked around 2,300 Australians and crowned Isuzu Ute its most reliable brand, with Mazda, Mercedes-Benz and Mitsubishi close behind it. D. Power, working from a much larger sample of owners, put Lexus and Toyota right on top instead. Consumer Reports over in the United States backed Toyota first, then Subaru, then Lexus. They each measure slightly different things, over slightly different cars, which is precisely why the badges that keep turning up near the top of all of them are the ones you can trust the most. The Toyotas, the Mazdas, the Subarus, the Kias, the Isuzus. Those are the names on this list, and they are on it because the evidence keeps pointing the same way. Here is the countdown. Number 1. The Suzuki Swift. We start small and cheap, because dependability is not just for people spending 60 grand on a badge. The Swift has quietly been one of the most reliable little cars sold in this country for the better part of 2 decades. Suzuki as a brand landed inside the top 10 in Canstar Blue's Australian Reliability Survey, sitting right up there with names that cost a great deal more, and the Swift is the single biggest reason why. The recipe is almost boringly simple, and that simplicity is the whole trick. It is light, the engine is small and never really stressed, and there is very little on it to go wrong in the first place. There is no giant turbocharger sitting there slowly cooking itself. There is no complicated dual-clutch gearbox waiting to shudder and fail out of warranty. It is just a simple, honest little car that fires up every morning and sips fuel, using somewhere around 4 litres per 100 kilometres if you drive it gently. The current model comes with a 5-year, unlimited kilometre warranty, and Suzuki runs a real dealer network, which matters far more than people think on the day a part has to be freighted in. Suzuki asks you to service it roughly every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, and because the whole car is so mechanically simple, those services stay cheap long after the warranty has run out. It is cheap to buy, cheap to run, and cheap to fix, and that combination is a big part of why a Swift holds up so well as a long-term buy. Now the catch, because there is always one. The latest Swift only carries a 3-star ANCAP safety rating, and that is a genuine mark against it, especially if you are putting a brand new P-plater or your kids behind the wheel. Reliability and crash safety are 2 completely different questions, and the Swift aces the first one while stumbling on the second. It is also a small, light car by design, so it is not the thing you buy to tow a box trailer or haul 5 adults and a boot full of luggage up a mountain. Buy it for exactly what it is, a cheap, tough, get-me-there-and-back runabout, and it will very likely outlast cars that cost twice the money. Ask it to be something it was never built to be, and you will end up disappointed. Which leads us neatly to a car that fixes the safety problem while keeping almost all of that Japanese toughness. Number 2. The Mazda 3. If the Swift is the sensible head choice, the Mazda 3 is the one your heart actually wants. Mazda finished second overall in Canstar Blue's Australian Reliability Survey, beaten by only a single brand, and it has held that kind of position year after year rather than fluking it once. The Mazda 3 is a huge part of how that reputation got built. Here is the clever thing Mazda did that a lot of rivals did not. While everyone else was chasing tiny, highly strung turbo engines to look good on a fuel economy sticker, Mazda largely stuck with naturally aspirated petrol engines it understood right down to the last bolt. Fewer stressed parts under the bonnet means fewer expensive surprises at 120,000 kilometres. The build quality has been consistently strong for 2 decades now, and the interiors have quietly crept up to feel genuinely premium, which is not something you can honestly say about most cars sitting at this price. And this is not a one-survey wonder. D. Power dependability study as well, so the 2 big independent sources are telling you the same story from different directions. The honest downside, and I am not going to skip it. The Mazda 3 is not the roomiest thing in its class. The back seat and the boot are both on the snug side, so a young family that is still growing might feel the squeeze inside a couple of years. It can also be a touch firm over sharp bumps and a little noisy on our coarse country bitumen, which is simply the trade-off for that sharper, more engaging drive. But notice what is missing from that list of complaints. None of it is a reliability problem. A tight rear seat and a bit of road noise are comfort gripes, not the kind of faults that leave you stranded or hand you a big repair bill, and that is exactly why the Mazda 3 is a rock-solid used buy and a very safe new one. But if you want the true long-haul marathon runner, the badge that basically invented this entire reputation, we need to talk about the next car. Number 3. The Toyota Corolla. It is almost a cliché to put a Corolla on a reliability list, and it has earned the right to be there anyway. This is the car that built the whole global idea that a well-made Japanese small car simply refuses to die. Older Corolla engines are routinely quoted as good for well past 250,000 kilometres, and plenty go a long way beyond that on nothing more exotic than regular oil changes and a fresh set of tyres. The current Corolla is a hybrid, and this is exactly where a lot of buyers start to get nervous, so let me put that fear to bed right now. Toyota's hybrid system is one of the most proven drivetrains ever sold in this country, full stop. There are Prius taxis running around Queensland that have cracked 350,000 kilometres on their original battery in taxi service, which is about the hardest life a car can live. Toyota is now confident enough to back the hybrid battery for up to 10 years, as long as you keep the car serviced within its network. That is not the behaviour of a company that is nervous about its own technology. It is worth adding that in the latest Consumer Reports rankings, Toyota sat at the very top for predicted reliability, ahead of almost every brand on earth. That reputation also props up the resale value because the whole country instinctively trusts a Corolla, which quietly takes some of the sting out of the higher price you pay to get into one. The catch here is genuinely mild. The Corolla's boot is small, especially in the hatch, so it is not the family hauler some people expect. The hybrid can also drone a little under hard acceleration, thanks to the way its gearbox holds the revs. And it is not a cheap small car anymore, because you are paying for that reputation. But what you get for the money is the single most bankable reliability record in the entire segment, plus a fuel bill so small it almost feels like a mistake. If you want a car you can hand down to your kids and then quietly buy back off them a decade later, this is the one. That said, most Australian families do not actually buy small cars. They buy the next kind of thing, and there is a very good reason one particular brand is happy to give you 7 whole years to change your mind. Number 4. The Kia Sportage. This is where reliability stops being a feeling and starts being written into the paperwork. Kia backs every single car it sells here with a 7-year, unlimited kilometre warranty, and that is not just a marketing line to get you into the showroom. A manufacturer does not put its name to 7 years of cover unless it is quietly very confident the car will not embarrass it in that time. Kia has spent the last decade clawing its way out of the value-only bargain bin and into the genuine reliability conversation, and it shows in the data. In Canstar Blue's Australian Reliability Survey, Kia now sits inside the top 5 brands, ahead of plenty of names with far posher reputations and far bigger price tags. D. Power Dependability Study 2, sitting right alongside brands like Mazda, which is a very long way from where Kia was parked a decade ago when it was purely the cheap option. The Sportage is its mid-size family SUV, and it does the unglamorous family stuff exceptionally well. Loads of room, a genuinely long warranty, and a track record that has finally caught up to the badges people used to pay more for. The fine print you actually need to know. 7 years of cover is brilliant, but it comes with the reasonable expectation that you service the car roughly on schedule, so hang on to those logbook receipts like they are cash, because one day they will be. And within the Sportage family itself, the simpler petrol versions carry the longest, cleanest track record so far, while the newest turbo and hybrid drivetrains are still busy building theirs. That is not a warning to run away from them, just a nudge to walk in with your eyes properly open. For the vast majority of buyers, the Sportage is one of the smartest ways going to land a dependable family SUV with a real safety net baked straight into the deal, which is a neat bridge to the car that has been Australia's default reliable SUV for years, even though it now carries the single biggest asterisk on this entire list. Number 5. The Toyota RAV4. For 6 years running, the RAV4 has been the best-selling SUV in the country, and it did not earn that by accident. It earned it with a reputation for simply working, year after year, without drama. The hybrid version in particular has been one of the most trusted family cars on Australian roads, running the very same well-understood Toyota hybrid guts as the Corolla and the Camry, only wrapped in a bigger, more practical body. When the average Australian pictures a reliable family SUV, this is very often the exact car in their head, and for a long time the ownership data has backed that instinct all the way up. Globally, Toyota has now sold more than 15 million RAV4S, and it has been the best-selling vehicle on the planet for the last 2 years running. Toyota is confident enough in the demand that it expects to shift somewhere around 40,000 of the new ones here in Australia in 2026 alone, which tells you how much faith buyers still put in that 3-letter name. Now the asterisk, and it is a big one, so I am not going to bury it. The RAV4 you buy brand new today is an all-new, 6th-generation model that only landed in showrooms in March 2026. That matters enormously, because a car's reliability reputation is built by the generations that came before it, and this particular one is fresh out of the box. It even launched without an ANCAP safety rating attached to it yet, which is genuinely worth knowing before you sign anything. The reassuring news that softens all of that is that Toyota carried over its proven hybrid system rather than gambling on something brand new, and the underlying platform is closely related to the one that came before. So you are essentially buying a fresh body wrapped around familiar, trusted mechanicals. My honest advice is simple. If you want a RAV4 with a fully proven, battle-tested record, a late model used one from the previous generation is the safer play. If you want the shiny new one, just go in, understanding that you are trusting the badge and the drivetrain, not years of hard data on that exact car, at least not yet. And if the phrase hybrid reliability still makes you a little twitchy, keep watching, because the next brand takes durability to a level that borders on obsessive. Number 6. The Subaru Forester. Everything so far has largely been about smooth suburban roads and sensible commutes. The Forester is built for the moment the bitumen runs out and the gravel begins. Subaru's signature party trick is a boxer engine bolted to permanent all-wheel drive, and that specific combination is genuinely, mechanically tough in a way that shows up out in the real world rather than just on a brochure. Drive through almost any farming town or up almost any dirt road in this country, and you will spot high-kilometre Foresters and Outbacks still hard at work, years after softer, trendier SUVs have quietly been sent to the wreckers. Subaru sits comfortably inside the stronger half of Canstar Blue's Australian reliability rankings, and the loyalty among its owners is the kind of thing you simply cannot manufacture with advertising. People who buy a Subaru have a habit of buying another Subaru, and that repeat purchase pattern tells you more than any single survey ever could. And if the tall Forester shape is not quite for you, The Outback wagon has been the quiet country favourite since around 2009 for exactly the same mechanical reasons, only in a lower, easier-to-load body that shrugs off wet and unsealed roads far better than its station wagon looks suggest. The trade-offs here are real, so let me lay them out plainly. That permanent all-wheel drive and boxer engine ask for a bit more fuel than a simpler front-wheel drive rival, and Subaru servicing can cost a touch more, partly because there is simply more hardware bolted under there doing more work. Very old boxer engines had a bit of a reputation for head gasket wear if they were badly neglected, though the modern ones are far better sorted, and a properly serviced example is a non-issue in practice. So here is the short version. You pay a small, ongoing premium for that all-weather, all-terrain toughness. If you live somewhere with real weather, real gravel, or real distance between towns, it is worth every single cent. If you honestly never leave the sealed suburbs, you might be paying for ability you will simply never use. Now, from the rugged and the rational to the brand that quietly tops the reliability charts almost everywhere on Earth that anyone bothers to measure them. Quick one before we get to it. If this honest, no-hype way of talking about Aussie cars is the thing you have been searching for, do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button. I dig into exactly this stuff every week. The reliability, the hidden traps, and the cars that are genuinely worth your hard-earned money. It really does help the channel grow, and it means the next time you're about to drop 40 grand, you will already have done your homework right here. So, that brand that tops the charts almost everywhere. It is not a mainstream badge at all, and once you see the name, it makes perfect sense. Number 7. The Lexus NX. If you want the closest thing to genuinely near perfect that money can currently buy, this is where you look. D. Power study, and it lands in the top 3 of Consumer Reports as well. That is not luck, and it repeats far too often to be a fluke. Lexus is Toyota's luxury arm, which means it takes Toyota's already obsessive engineering and then bolts another whole layer of quality control on top of it before the car ever leaves the factory. The NX is its mid-size SUV, and in hybrid form it pairs that legendary, bulletproof Toyota hybrid drivetrain with a cabin that is genuinely plush and beautifully screwed together. In plain terms, you get the mechanical durability of the RAV4's posh cousin, only dressed in a far nicer suit and built to a higher standard of finish. The catch is the obvious one, and I will not dance around it. This costs meaningfully more than the mainstream options on this list, both to buy in the first place and to service afterwards, because premium parts and premium dealer servicing are simply never cheap. And even within the Lexus range itself, the hybrid versions carry the cleanest reputation, while some of the older turbo petrol NX models are a little less proven by direct comparison. But if your single biggest priority is owning a car that comes about as close to never letting you down as anything on sale, and you can genuinely stretch the budget to reach it, then Lexus has flat out earned the right to charge what it charges. This is reliability sold as a luxury product, and the data says it delivers. And because a Lexus is really a Toyota underneath all the leather and the badge, the parts and the mechanical know-how to fix one are far easier to come by in this country than they are for most other prestige nameplates, which is not something you can say about a lot of luxury cars. Speaking of quietly brilliant, the next car has been one of the most consistently trusted vehicles in the entire trade for years, and almost nobody ever makes a fuss about it. Number 8. The Mazda CX-5. This is the sensible, unglamorous, quietly excellent hero of the whole family SUV segment. For years now, the CX-5 has been one of the most consistently well-regarded mid-size SUVs on the Australian market, the kind of car that mechanics quietly steer their own relatives toward. It rides comfortably, it is cheap to run for its size, and crucially it tends to sidestep the electrical gremlins and the fiddly touchscreen headaches that plague some of its flashier, more fashion-forward rivals. That all traces straight back to Mazda's whole guiding philosophy of keeping the engineering simple and thoroughly sorted, rather than chasing every shiny new trend the moment it appears. Mazda's second-place finish in the Canstar Blue Reliability Survey is built on exactly this kind of undramatic, do-the-job-properly car, and the CX-5 is arguably the best example of it. It first went on sale here back in 2012, and it has spent the better part of the years since barely putting a foot wrong, which is a genuinely long time to stay out of trouble in a segment as brutally competitive as the mid-size SUV class. Here is the honest note every buyer needs to hear right now, though. Mazda has recently rolled the CX-5 into a new generation, which means the very latest one is, a bit like the new RAV4, earlier in its proven track record than the model it just replaced. The meaningful difference is that Mazda tends to evolve its cars carefully and conservatively rather than gamble everything on a clean sheet redesign, so the risk sits lower than it might, but it is still worth having in your mind. A late previous generation CX-5 remains one of the very safest used SUV buys in the entire country, no qualifications needed. Whether you decide to go new or used, you are buying into a hard-won reputation for being reassuringly, wonderfully dull, and dull is precisely the quality you want in a car you are planning to trust for the next decade. Now for the biggest surprise on this whole list, because the car that actually tops Australia's own reliability survey is almost certainly not the one you would guess. Number 9. The Isuzu D-Max. Ask nearly anyone to name Australia's most reliable brand and they will fire back with Toyota without even thinking. But in Canstar Blue's actual owner reliability survey, the brand that topped the entire list was not Toyota at all. It was Isuzu Ute. And the D-Max is the whole reason for it. This is a working ute built around one very specific, almost old-fashioned priority above all others. Keep going, no matter what you throw at it. Isuzu leans hard on a sturdy ladder frame and a diesel engine that was designed from the start to be worked hard and to keep on running long after the novelty of a new ute has completely worn off. For tradies, for farmers, and for anyone who genuinely treats a ute as a tool rather than a fashion accessory in a car park, that unbreakable, no-nonsense character is exactly the whole point, and the ownership data lines up behind it perfectly. It is the reason you still see so many high-kilometre D-Maxes out on job sites and farm tracks, long past 200,000 kilometres, still turning up to work every morning as if nothing has happened. The trade-off is comfort, and Isuzu barely even pretends otherwise, which is honestly refreshing. The D-Max rides firmer over bumps than some of its softer rivals, and the cabin is far more sensible than it is plush. So if you want your ute to feel like a luxury lounge room on the inside, this is simply not that car. But that firmness and that plainness are the whole point of it. Every single dollar Isuzu chose not to spend making the thing feel fancy went instead into making it last a very long time. If your ute genuinely needs to be a proper work tool that shrugs off years of abuse and just keeps clocking on, the D-Max might quietly be the single most reliable vehicle on this entire list. And the Australian survey says exactly that in black and white. Which leaves one very obvious question hanging in the air. If Isuzu tops the survey, then where on earth does the ute that built the whole reliability legend actually fit in? Number 10. The Toyota Hilux. You genuinely cannot make a list like this one in Australia and leave the Hilux off it. This is the ute that earned a reputation for being close to unbreakable, and it earned that reputation the hard way, over decades of being absolutely flogged senseless by farmers, tradies and mine sites across some of the harshest terrain on the entire continent. But the fearsome reputation is only half of the real story. The other half, and it might be the more important half, is Toyota's parts and service reach, which is simply unmatched anywhere in this country. If you break down 400 kilometres from the nearest capital city, the odds that someone nearby can lay hands on a Hilux part and get you moving again are flatly better than for almost anything else on the road. And that is the part people forget. Reliability is not only about how rarely the car breaks, it is also about how easily you can get yourself moving again on the day it finally does. And on that specific measure, the Hilux sits in a league entirely of its own. The honest caveats, because you have earned them by now. A brand new Hilux generation is on the horizon, which means if you buy the current one, you are buying a very known, very proven quantity right at the tail end of its run. And that is either deeply reassuring or slightly awkward, depending on exactly how you feel about timing. Some of the older diesel Hilux models also had their share of emissions system and filter niggles over the years, so any used one truly deserves a careful, unhurried look through its full service history before you commit. And, exactly like the D-Max, it is a work tool first and a comfort machine a distant second. But as a thing that starts, works, and stubbornly keeps on working in the toughest conditions this country can throw at a vehicle, the Hilux remains the benchmark that the entire ute market still quietly measures itself against. So there they are. 10 cars you can still buy brand new in Australia in 2026 with reliability records that sit about as close to perfect as this whole business ever allows. And if you notice that the list leans heavily Japanese and heavily toward one or two particular brands, I want to be straight with you about why, because it is a fair thing to wonder. It is simply what the data keeps stubbornly saying, year after year, survey after survey, no matter who is doing the counting. Toyota alone has topped Australia's sales charts for 23 years straight and shifted close to 240,000 cars here in a single year. You simply do not sell that many cars for that many years running if the things routinely die on people halfway to work. But here is the part that matters more than any single badge on this entire list. Out on the used market, the badge is maybe half the story at best. A neglected, thrashed Corolla with a suspicious, patchy service history will let you down faster and harder than a genuinely well-loved car wearing a badge with a far worse reputation. Reliability is half the car and half the way it has actually been treated by the people who owned it before you. So pick from this shortlist, absolutely, and then go and do the boring homework that hardly anyone bothers with. Check the logbook and be suspicious of one that has gaps or one that suddenly looks complete right before the sale. Check the car's background, because a proper history check will tell you whether there is still finance owing that would follow the car home to you rather than staying with the seller, whether it has ever been written off or reported stolen, and whether that suspiciously low odometer reading is actually the truth. None of that shows up on a test drive, and absolutely none of it shows up in the badge on the bonnet. A tired, thrashed car wearing a great name is still a tired, thrashed car. Make sure the specific example sitting in front of you has really lived the easy life its shiny badge quietly implies. Do that properly, and you have stacked the odds about as far in your own favour as buying a car ever realistically allows. Because in the end, reliability was never a cast-iron guarantee anyway. What it actually buys you is fewer nasty surprises spread over more good years, and that quiet, boring, unglamorous dependability is worth more on the morning your car just starts than any spec sheet on the entire lot.